looks. Do I look okay?
Yeah,
That's good.
That's
Just
good.
gotta groove have it. Alright, I think we're good to go. Hi class, welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited to be with you here today because today's assignment is to record an interview with someone. Now, I've recorded an interview with someone very important to me in my life, my mother. She's been a teacher for many, many years, and she has been able to share with me some of her experiences with this transition to online teaching and learning, which we were talking about in the last video. But before we get to that, I want to share with you my 5 tips to conducting a good interview. Tip number 1. Ask open-ended questions. If you ask someone, do you like hot dogs? You're probably going to get a pretty boring answer. But if you ask someone, could you describe to me your perfect hot dog? You might get a little more information. Tip number 2. Decide on the topics of your interview ahead of time. If you're interviewing a professor of sociology on race relations, probably don't ask them the hot dog question. Tip number 3. Do some research on the subject you're going to be discussing. That will help you ask relevant questions and engage in the discussion with them. Tip number 4. Engage in active listening. You want to make sure you can hear and understand what they're saying so that you don't ask a question that they've already answered, and so you can ask intelligent follow-up questions. And lastly, tip number 5. Write your questions down, but you don't have to stick rigidly to them. You want to keep the conversation on topic, but you also want it to have a natural flow. All right, those are my 5 tips. Now on to the interview. Hello class, and welcome back to Kai the Teacher. Today I have a very special guest who I'm interviewing for you all. This is my mom! So, my mom is a teacher. So how long have you been teaching for?
Over 35 years.
All right, long time. And have you ever encountered something like this, such a big shift in how school works?
Never. I never expected anything like this to happen.
Yeah. And it's sort of funny because everything in education takes years and years to change, and this is something that sort of changed overnight.
Right.
So how did you feel when you sort of first heard that online classes were going to possibly be a part of your future?
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of panic.
Yeah.
Just because I had to totally switch gears, and because I teach young children, there's so much interaction with them, so much sitting on the carpet and talking and sharing, and I was trying to think of how I would be able to do all of that online.
What grade are you teaching now?
Grade 3.
Grade 3, okay. So what's been the most difficult part of the switch over, of switching sort of your practice over to online learning?
I think for me, well, there's a number of things, but one of the things is that I had to learn to use Seesaw, which is very user-friendly, but it's a great app to use with students so they can get their responses back to me.
Is that like sort of a Google Classroom type app?
Yes, yes. For younger students, it works really well, but that's what it's like. Yeah. I think one of the hardest thing was to try to think of activities or assignments that I could send that would be more suitable for home learning.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, even just something, we were working on measurement. So I had them find a room in their house, take a picture of it, and measure different spots in the room and record them and send it back to me. But trying to make them more hands-on, not as much paper pencil activities, although there are definitely some. And so that they would be engaging activities,
mm-hmm.
and it would take them a little bit of time and that kind of thing.
Have you had any trouble with the tech side of things?
Definitely, and that's where my son is very handy.
That was the setup. I was like, how have you been getting through that? How possibly could you be getting through these technical difficulties?
So I do have to say, I have tremendous support at school, and I can email so many people. But having my son right here has been extremely helpful for that.
That's good. Thank you.
Another thing that's been very difficult, I don't know if this is a question coming up, but is that each family's situation is so incredibly different.
Yeah.
So some parents who are involved in healthcare are not home much of the time, so can't support their children who are around 8 years old. I have some families who have siblings, so parents might need to help more than one child at a time, and more than one child has to be on a computer or on the internet, that kind of thing. I have some parents who want more than I've assigned, and some parents who are having trouble doing what I've assigned. So that's all things to consider and that I'm working on as we go.
Have you found that any aspects of online learning are things that you would carry forward in your practice once classes return to normal?
Yes, actually. I think that using something like Seesaw, an app like that, would be a really good thing to use during the year in different ways. So that was a good learning experience. And even some of the activities, I'm trying to be more creative in how I design my activities, and I think that will just help my own planning in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think in my last video I talked a lot about how having certain limitations placed upon us can sort of heighten our creativity.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, I think you sort of covered most of what I was going to ask you. I do have one last question. Lindsay gave you Maverick, who my class has all met in previous videos, but I'm following in your footsteps as a teacher. So, who is your favorite child?
I love them all equally, both equally, and my grandchild. What can I say?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I'll see you immediately after this. Bye.